Hi, I'm Chris. I'm here with Megan. We're going to speak to Steve today as part of our get to know members of staff and volunteers at Changes. Just before we go on, just a word of warning. I'm expecting that we're going to get some really, really bad puns today. So just be aware of that. And I mean bad
Yeah.
puns, probably enough to make Andy Zoltzman blush a little bit. But anyway, Steve, do you want to go just tell us a little bit how you got involved with Changes and what you're doing at the moment for us?
Um, yeah, sure. And hello to both of you.
Hi.
And fancy, I'm glad that you told Megan keep the puns down to a minimum. Um, Basically, it was quite strange how I come across Changes. I was out with my parents in Stoke, walking through Sainsbury's, and there was somewhere there that was advertising for carers for the elderly. And because they saw me with my parents, they called me over. So I went for like an initial 40-minute talk with those. And while I was there, she stopped me and said, I think you'd benefit from Changes because everything you've told me, it sounds like you're suffering with anxiety and depression and whatever. So I told her my story. So I contacted Changes, and my first initial workshop was well-being with Suzanne. Um, and I can honestly say that I never looked back from there. I came as, because I wouldn't, believe it or not, I wouldn't speak very much. I was very quiet because I used to be in a job.
I don't believe you.
But I used to be in a job where I was on my own all the time. So I became where I couldn't socialise with people. I found it very difficult to talk, very difficult to keep a conversation going. And as I went through the workshop, I started, I suppose, opening up a little bit, talking about my problems and realising that what I thought to myself wasn't true, because there was people in the group that were saying, why are you saying that? Because that you couldn't be further from the truth, because you're very talkative, believe it or not. And you sort of get your point across and confident. And now that's one thing that really, really surprised me, because I've always thought that I'm very, very, very low confidence, I think. And then she pushed me forward as to go to the OCN. And I suppose it went from there. So I did well-being, recovery, and then started in the peer sports.
And what's your current role at Changes?
Well, current role, obviously I'm a volunteer. I'm in the office with Lorraine and Chris, basically just supporting service users when they come in. I enrol service users. I explain to them about the 12 steps. I explain to them about how the meetings run, what we do in the meetings, what the idea of Changes is all about, how to get into the Changes community, call it, and just how to benefit from the meetings. And also I coordinate as well, so I do the meetings. Because I've done the OCN, I go and coordinate the meetings, and it just all seems to work. And it's basically I've got to thank Lorraine a lot, actually, because she's sort of, what's the word, sort of nurtured me, I suppose. And anything, if there's ever a problem, I can always pick the phone up, and Lorraine's always there. And I know Chris would be as well, as anybody from Changes would be as well, because that's how Changes is, I think. Changes becomes, at the end of the day, like a second family.
And how have you found that things have changed during lockdown?
I've got to be 100% honest. I thought when we went into Changes, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be, I'm going to have no problem with this, because of thinking back to how I used to be, when I used to be able to isolate working on my own. I used to think, oh, no problem. But boy, was I wrong. I started having days where I was really angry with myself. I was being flippant with people. I was arguing all the time with my daughter, because I've got my daughter living with me as well. And it was only through carrying on with the meetings on Zoom and things like that I slowly started to realise that it was my behaviour that was causing the problem. And obviously understanding that everybody else was going through it as well. and realising that obviously my daughter was going through it. So we were sort of bouncing off one another, but in a negative way. And we had to sort of pull all the training into, get it into perspective really, pull all the training in like that you learn in the anger management and things like that. You've got to take responsibility for your own actions.
Mhm.
And I think as soon as I started to realise, wait a minute, I'm majority of the problem here, because I thought I was coping with it okay. Then when I realised I wasn't, I think that made me feel even worse as well, because because you sort of get, when I'm with sort of changes, I'm busy all the time.
Mm.
I'm doing stuff in the office. There's always people there that you can talk to, but then when you're always busy and then all of a sudden it stops, it's like that. What do I do now? And you do get into that, even though it changes. We tell people that if you've got the issues, tell people about it. You do, without realising, get in that frame of mind, you think, I don't want to bother anybody with it because it's not fair because everybody else is going through it.
And what have you used to manage that then? What has helped you?
I would definitely say the peer support meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking to other people, realising that as well as me going through it, everybody else is going through it. As I talk to people to try and sort their issues out, I'm sorting my own issues out as well. It's like that. If I say to somebody, well, you shouldn't have said that, don't you? Because you've got to blah, blah, And then you think, hang on, I'm talking about myself here.
Mm-hmm.
As well as sorting their issues out, you're sorting your own. And it's definitely a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's a two-way thing. You can, and it proves the thing where changes work so well, because you could talk to 5 people, and out of them 5 people, 4 of them will know exactly what you're going through.
Yeah.
You might have one that's suffering with a slightly different issue, but you've still got the anxiety and everything else that comes with that. So you're ironing out everybody's problems as well as your own.
Yeah.
Which is great, Al. I've got to admit, yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Mm.
Let's move on to some more light-hearted stuff. So, who is your favourite band or artist?
If anybody was to get in my car, they'd automatically say my favourite band is UB40, because
Okay.
it's always on in my car. But on saying that, it's UB40, The Jam, Madness, Specials, Bad Manners, Selector, all the stuff from like the 80s.
I don't think I know any of them.
Well, yeah, you haven't lived, have you, really?
What genre of music is it? What kind of music?
It's 80s, isn't it? Ska, reggae.
I like reggae.
Madness. I grew up with Madness.
40, don't you? Red wine.
Red wine, yeah.
Oh yeah. I always thought that was Bob Marley.
UB40, I've covered a couple of Bob Marley songs, yeah.
I do, haven't they? Yeah. But not that one.
No. But not that
one. There is an earlier version of it, isn't there? A different tempo version of red wine.
Yes, and I can't think off the top of my head who released it.
A faster version of it, isn't it? And they slowed it down to get that sound.
And I suppose I grew up with Madness. When I was growing up, I was Madness through and through. And because they are one of the only bands that I like that have practically stayed together all the way through. They've been together for 40 years nearly, I think.
Wow.
And they're still performing.
And what genre of music is that?
That's ska.
Is that angry music?
No.
Bouncy. More bouncy, I'd say. House.
Yeah.
Welcome to the House of Fun and all that lot.
Oh, okay. I know that song.
House of Fun, Baggy Trousers.
Yeah.
I don't know that one. Hey, I do know them.
But I've got a mix as well, actually, because I like Meatloaf.
Okay.
I used to love, the Jeff Wayne, War of the Worlds. This is Jeff Wayne. That album, that is brilliant. That is. Okay. If you ever listen to that, that's perfect for listening to in the dark, no lights on, quite loud. That'll relax you.
Jeff Wayne.
War of the Worlds. It's like a musical, but with spoken on top of it. Go through the story of War of the Worlds. I'm sure if you listen to it, you'll recognise some of the music from it. It's quite ubiquitous. It's in quite a few places.
Oh, I might have a little listen to that. That sounds interesting. Have you watched anything really good on TV lately?
Funny you should say that. I never thought I'd be one of these kind of people that binge watches things, but I was advised by somebody to watch something that's called Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll have a look at that. And before I knew where I was, I'd been up for about 3 days watching it. And I watched it from beginning to end, so I've seen all that.
That's good going, that is.
At the moment, I'm watching Heroes.
Oh, I've not seen that.
You're going to get disappointed, Steve. Sorry.
Hannah. Oh, right. Thank you. You get that feeling about things, though, don't you, that they start off well. And I was watching it last night, watching an episode last night, and I think it's just started series 2. Because I know there's 4 series.
Yeah, and they did a redo of it as well at some point. I think there were a little mini series a few years ago. I can't remember whether it was a continuation or a remake. I can't remember, but they did try and bring it back.
Right.
I like it. I like the premise of it. It was good. I think they tried to be too clever at some point.
Yeah, and when I was watching it, and I thought it's ironic that is it Stan Lee? He always does some kind of cameo in anything like that, don't he? Because he was the bus driver.
Have you got a favourite film?
If I'm honest, yes.
Go on.
Some people might say it's a bit soppy. I've got more than one actually, but I think my favourite would be The Green Mile.
Yeah, cracking film.
I think that ace that is. And I think that shows you what humanity's all about, that does. Anything that's fantastic, like kill it, get rid of it. And that's how people see humanity sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Somebody does nice, people don't like it. But
sad feeling, isn't it?
I think anyway.
What's your favourite genre of films?
I've got a mixture, to be honest. I'm not the kind of person where I stick to one particular type of film. So I like action films. I like things like Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
I like the Jack Reacher films. I like Terminator.
I'll be back.
Even though I thought that got a bit rubbish near the end when they started doing more and more films of it. Just things like action, and I do like sort of war films. I mean, I watched that Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh, how good is that?
The other day, and that's a fantastic film. I consider it a true story as well.
So you mentioned that people would assume you to like war films. Obviously, people watching aren't going to assume anything. Why would people assume that you like war films?
I think a lot of it is because I'm always talking about my time when I was with the Army Cadets. I mean, I was talking about this morning actually. I joined the Army in 1988, but because of a medical condition, I was actually discharged after 7 weeks in my basic training. But I was a instructor with the Army Cadets before I went in. So when I actually came out, I ended up doing 20 years as an instructor with the cadets, and it was that sort of built me up to how I am now, because when we dealt with the kids within the Army Cadets, it was about instilling community spirit, being a better citizen. We used to do citizenship. Obviously, we did all military format training. Like, obviously, a lot of people don't like it, but we used to do skillet arms where they did weapons, fieldcraft, and we sort of teach them how to be self-reliant, but how to work as a team as well. So you've got to look after the person that's next to you, plus look after yourself. That we used to sort of instill that in them in the training. And even though it's not like the Army, it's the Army Cadets, still wearing the same uniform, still affiliated to a regiment. So you still get that regimental sort of timekeeping, all the instruction and everything else, because we were instructors. We used to train them in them particular things. And it's quite similar actually to what Changes is like. I know people might see I can't understand why you're making that comparison, but it's an example that when you're within Changes, you know that you can rely on probably the person who's next to you. Because especially all the staff, I mean, because I was saying this morning that I'm quite humbled, to be honest, that the staff actually treat me as if I'm a member of staff, even though I'm not. And it's just that feeling that obviously they must be putting that trust in me. And I know I can trust everybody else, staff members. So, you know, I couldn't thank them enough. And that's what I'm thinking about, the comparison between the two. Whereas, you know, the old, when you get sort of a brother within the services, when you get somebody you never leave a man behind and all that kind of stuff, you always go back in, that kind of thing. It's exactly the same kind of feeling within Changes. You get that camaraderie and the feeling like you belong to something. Instead of being all individuals, everybody's working as individuals, but for the same aim as one unit. And that's what I like about it.
I know the answer to this, but have you got any pets?
I have, yes. I've got a cat. She's somewhere about. I did have her earlier on, but she's gone now.
And what's she called?
Tinkerbell. Little Tinker she is. She's not very much of a, how would you put it? She's not like a sociable cat. She won't come to you and like sit on your knee or anything like some cats do. She'll come to you, and then as soon as you go for like pick her up, she's off. She likes her independence. She likes to
Independent kitty.
Oh yeah, she's definitely independent, but she's got a boyfriend as well.
How did she get a boyfriend? Where did she find him?
He found her.
Oh.
Well, should I say he found her? It was a case of he came to the yard and the daughter put a bit of food out, and I said, whatever you do, don't put any food out, because if you do, he'll come back.
Oh no.
He put some food out and he comes back, and every time he comes in the door now, she hisses like mad at him. And I call him Sebastian Borzai, because if there's two, when he looks at you, you don't know who he's looking at because his eyes are.
Oh.
Wow. But she'll hiss like mad at him, and he sort of looks as if say, and what you got to do now?
I'm still coming up with food.
It's quite funny to see actually, because she hisses like mad as if to say get out, and he's like bothered. Like just walks in. It's like hilarious.
Coming for his scran, isn't he?
Yeah.
Talking about scran, what is your favourite go-to comfort food?
My all-time favourite food is spaghetti bolognese.
Oh.
Love that. Minted lamb, because I suppose I haven't really got anything that I would really go to. I suppose if I was to binge eat something, like watching these things on telly, it'd probably be biscuits.
Biscuits, what's your favourite biscuit?
No, how many of them is there? Any that you put in your mouth.
Great.
Favourite kind.
Where is your favourite place on the earth?
I would probably have to say, because I've never been abroad.
Okay.
My favourite place, I would say, would be Cornwall.
Oh, yes.
Probably Newquay, somewhere like that. Because it's standing on the brick walls, looking down on Festrel Beach, when you can actually see right down to the bottom, see straight through the sea, and see that's amazing views in Cornwall, I think.
I've never done that.
Oh, yeah.
No. Cornwall is stunning, though.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Do you read?
I've never been much of a reader.
Okay.
But since we've been in lockdown, I've started reading a bit. I actually attend that Tales on Tuesdays club just to see if I can get anything that sort of jumps out at me.
Yeah.
But the 2 books that I've read, the 3 books that I've read since we've been in lockdown is, this is not going to surprise a lot of people. I've read SAS Leadership Techniques.
Good, isn't it?
One book, yeah. I've read First Man In by Ant Middleton. I've read The Fear Bubble.
Yeah.
And now I've got his new one, which is called Zero Negativity.
Yeah.
And I've also got Foxy's book, which is Battle Scars, which I've still got to read. I've got Breakpoint, which is Ollie Ollerton's, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's Ollie.
Yeah, I think it's Ollie.
What's the other one I've got? I've got Billy Bingham's book, and I can't think what that's called at the moment.
And have you watched all the series?
Yes. Oh yeah, I watch them religiously. I tape them, yeah. Or record them, should I say. Yeah, and we were at a book club, at the book club last week, and I actually bought a horror book, which the only book I'd read in the past was Stephen King's It.
Mm-hmm.
I read that while I was waiting for being discharged out of the army, and I thought, I've never read anything since. So this is the first time I've sort of got into anything.
I was going to ask you if you've done anything new over lockdown. So you've started reading again, which is amazing. Have you done any other things different? Any new hobbies or?
I'm an avid, I like to take things apart. Because have you ever seen the
again though?
Ever seen the film, The Only Fools and Horses, with the sketch with Trigger when he's talking about his broom?
Yeah, I've seen the sketch. Yeah.
And he says like I've had this broom for 20 years, 3 new handles and 6 new heads, something like that. And it's still the same broom. Well, I've got a tumble dryer that I've had for about 15 years, but it's had like 6 new belts, 3 new drums, 2 new thingy, but it's still the same tumble dryer. So it's like, I like to have a tinker about with phones as well. I've got a couple of phones that I'm hoping to strip down and see if I can repair, do the screens and stuff like that. Just basically just I think I do some of these things sometimes just to see if I can do it.
That's pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, when my daughter had an iPhone 6, I used to replace the screens on that for her. Used to do all the screen repairs. I've got a bit of kit which helps you to separate the screens off Samsung phones, because the Samsung phones are built differently. They glue the screen and they digitize it together. So you have to warm it up so you can wire it and split the two so you can just put a new screen on instead of replacing the whole lot.
That's pretty interesting. And how do you learn how to do that?
YouTube.
Yeah, I thought you would say that.
Easy to just watch the video. Thingy. I've got an Xbox as well because I do play on the Xbox occasionally. And my DVD drive went on that, so I watched YouTube, ordered a new drive because the drive is actually paired to the motherboard on the Xbox, so you have to take the inside of the drive out and replace it in the new one before you put the new drive in. So that's not difficult, to be honest, but I've done that, replaced the drive. So I like to try and look to see whether I can repair it before I throw it away and have to get a new one. So it's probably just a money saving thing because I'm tight.
It sounds like boring to me. Like I'm gonna switch it off and switch it on. If it don't work, gone. Yeah.
What games do you play on your Xbox, Steve?
I like to. I like more of the brain working games. I like playing Tomb Raider purely because you've got to sort of find out where you're going, and then you've got to solve puzzles as you go into the tombs and things like that. I've had a go at COD and stuff like that, and I just can't get into it. It's too. I don't know. Anybody can just pick a weapon up and just shoot anything that moves, can't they? Even though I do like playing them games, don't get me wrong, but I much prefer the games where you've got to use a bit of grey matter, where I've got to try and get my brain cell working.
It's always good, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you could have any job in the world, what job would you want?
It'd be nice to have some kind of job where I could keep putting money into changes to make sure it keeps going.
Oh, that's nice.
Bye-bye.
You put enough into changes.
But it's not just me. Everybody else does.
You do?
There's other people that do far more work than me, and one of them sitting there, aren't you, Chris? And you do.
I do get
You
paid.
do I'm not going to sit here and have all about me, where you do fantastic work with the kids, which stay well.
This is supposed to be all about you. What's your favourite season?
Winter.
Why?
Because for some reason I seem to prefer the cold. It's probably just me, but I seem to, in winter when you wake up in the morning and you got that freezing cold air, that's brilliant. That is, because it wakes you up straight away. I'll sleep with all the windows out now while in winter, so it's freezing cold when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah, that is nice. What was your favourite subject at school?
Not being there. Favourite subject at school? That isn't tough. I used to enjoy physics, even though I wasn't very good at it. But I think that's mainly because obviously when you do physics, you're sort of using the Geiger-Müller tube and all that kind of stuff, where you're measuring radioactivity and all that kind of stuff. You bring, when you have the Van de Graaff in the room, so you're doing like static electricity and all that kind of stuff with the physics. So you're sort of experimenting with stuff, hands-on.
It's like what you do, pulling all your things apart and putting them back together and fixing them.
Could be. It's like when you grab hold of the Van de Graaff and you join hands in the class and everybody's hair stands up on end because the electricity current goes all the way around the class.
Never heard of it in my life. Sounds like fun though.
Yeah, it is.
So, if somebody who's struggling with their mental health is watching this video, what would you like to say to them?
I'd just like to say, anybody who's struggling with mental health, I would say, you're not alone. Don't be afraid. Come to Changes, because there's people at Changes who will understand exactly what you're going through. Nothing to be ashamed of. Pick up the phone, give us a call, come into our meetings, and you'll, even though I say to a lot of people, you will be surprised, and a lot of people are. There's so many people that you speak to that go, nobody can help me. But then they come to Changes and find out that they're wrong. There is people there that can help you. And that's what I'd say to people. Come to Changes, give us a try.
And if you don't live in the area and Changes is not an option,
seek help, find out your nearest mental health outlet, mental health authority. Get in touch with them, speak to them.
Thank you, Steve, for your time and your withholding of puns, which is much appreciated, I'm sure, by many. And thank you, Megan, and we'll all speak again later.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.